Hanging in Dorms with Boys and the Secret Life of Men. It's the 99th episode of The Conners. We're right around the corner from that milestone 100th. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my review for The Conners, latest episode, number 99. I cannot believe that we've made it this far. Usually, reboots last maybe 2 or 3 seasons, but this family has stuck around, and it's been awesome to watch them once again all of these years. And that doesn't even count, by the way, Roseanne season 10, which I think was that 10 episodes maybe, or 12? Or maybe it wasn't even that many, but either way, so it doesn't even count those episodes too. So, really awesome. But anyway, before I launch into this week's episode, let me welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. We do the Conners reviews every single week, and they're always among my most popular videos. But check out all the other stuff on my channel. I do generally movie reviews and TV reviews. I don't do episode by episode like I do with the Conners, except for The Masked Singer. But and the Frasier reboot. If you were into Frasier in the 90s, I did all of the Frasier new episodes as well on Paramount Plus last fall. But anyway, just about every day I do try to post something new, so it's not just Conners content, so feel free to check out the other stuff on my channel. But with the Conners, please consider, of course, subscribing, but comment below in the comment section. I love talking to you guys about this show. And, by the way, the last, week or two, I've seen an uptick in really, really nasty comments about the show. Not specifically about my videos, but about, oh, I won't watch since Roseanne left and this and that and the other thing. And look, I don't know. The fact that I'm getting negative comments tells me that the video is popular enough that it's being seen by people that maybe don't care or whatever. I don't know why you'd click on a Conners review, if you don't like the show, but whatever, that is the internet. But what's nice is every one of those comments, adds to the little YouTube algorithm and, gives another person a chance to see that video. It'll come up in more people's feeds or whatever, or more people's suggestions if people comment, whether it's positive or negative. So, those comments I don't respond to, but I love responding to the Conners fans. So, whatever your thoughts are on this episode, please let me know. I do love conversing with you. So, all right, let's talk about Hanging in Dorms with Boys and the Secret Life of Men. This was directed by Robbie Countryman. This is his second episode of the season for directing. And then Molly Kiernan and Daniel Spector are co-credited with writing this episode. I don't know these guys, so maybe this is their first credit on the Conners. I don't recognize those names. I scrolled up, for the last couple of seasons and didn't see them. So, maybe newcomers to the game. Now, of course, TV shows like this always have, whole writers' rooms, and they just sort of credit different people throughout, for the Writers Guild kind of stuff. But whatever, I'm unfamiliar with them. All right, so we'll talk about the first topic first, which we usually do. But this time, I was going to talk about it first either way because it is a very small part of the episode. Usually there's 2 A stories. This one is an A and I guess a B, but really it's a C. There's a couple of scenes and that's it. The stuff with the Secret Life of Men is certainly the bulk of this episode. So Hanging Indoors with Boys, basically Mark comes to Harris about maybe buying him and his friends alcohol for their weekend party, and she's like, okay, well, what about your fake ID? And he tells her that he's actually a 32-year-old Asian man in his ID, so not really gonna work. Dr. Wong, I think it was. So she's like, okay, well, while I'm still at the tattoo shop, maybe your little nerdy friends can let me tattoo them for this alcohol. Okay, sure. So they strike up a little deal with that, and she ends up hanging out with them and sort of, chilling really, while they're kind of partying or whatever. It seems like a pretty tame party, but okay, Well, and he kind of says, look, we're, math and science nerds, don't expect all this crazy stuff. They're just, hanging out, playing video games, whatever. But Mark gets a little bit annoyed that Harris is basically hanging out hey, you were supposed to provide us the alcohol, maybe tattoo these kids a little bit, but time to move on. And she's like, well, I don't know. I think your friends want me here or whatever, which they seem to. One of his friends is clearly attracted to her. And, it ends up being, kind of a tiff between them. So she goes home. And Darlene had already heard about it through Mark, and so she's like, "What are you doing, hanging out with them at their dorm?" Look, I guess it's a fair question, but first of all, college kids come in all ages. I mean, I when I went to college, I started at 17, but even, when I was, 18, 19, 20, I mean, there were people who were in their late 20s, early 30s that were living in the dorms with us. One of our friends had gone into the military right after high school, and so he was doing, his, late, what do they call that? I forget, but he came back to school at like 27 or whatever it was. And, so I mean, that does happen. So it doesn't seem that odd to me, but I guess because they're siblings and, maybe they've not really hung out, I guess, a lot during their lives. They sort of lead separate lives, right? But she confesses to Darlene that maybe she is kind of bummed out that she missed the college opportunity, and now is about to take over the lunchbox. They keep sort of hinting about, not hinting, but referring to her taking over the lunchbox, which is something from, I think, the first episode of this season. And yet we've not really seen her doing that. I don't think we've seen her at the lunchbox at all since that first episode, but they have mentioned it a few times about her taking over. Jackie mentioned it, I think, in last week's episode. But in any event, so she's like, oh, I'm kind of nervous about taking over the lunchbox. Like, this is going to be a career basically for me, and I'm not sure if I even necessarily want to do it, or if I'm ready to do it. I sort of, regret not going to college. Well, okay, which is one thing, but just going and having parties isn't necessarily the college experience. I mean, she could certainly go take a class. I'm surprised that wasn't really talked about more. You don't have to necessarily live in the dorms to, yes, it helps with the quote unquote college experience, but you could just take some classes as well. And honestly, she should take some classes in business management and whatever. They talked a little bit about that before. I guess she had maybe some training in that, but yeah, so I don't know. They could have maybe gone that way with that. But okay. But anyway, so this episode really, both subjects kind of dovetail with each other, with Darlene sort of dealing with someone's, I don't know, crisis of where they are in their lives or whatever, because the A story, The Secret Life of Men, has to do with Ben about to turn 50, which is wild. I mean, I know I'm the same age as Darlene, so, I'm 46, so she's got to be, 46, 47. So makes sense that he's turning 50, but he certainly doesn't seem it. But what's weird is I just wrapped up watching Evening Shade, which is an old Burt Reynolds show from the 90s. I never watched it when it was on, but they have the DVDs of it, and so a few years ago I bought it, and it was finally time to crack it open. As you can see, I have a lot of DVDs, so there's a lot that I've never opened, but, every so often I'll crack open a new TV show that I've never watched before, and I didn't realize he was on it, but J.R. Ferguson, who plays Ben, he was on this show, Evening Shade, as a, young teen. It ran 4 seasons, so he probably was maybe 13 to 17 or whatever while it was on. I think he was a senior in high school, maybe the last season. But it's so weird to think, okay, now this guy's turning 50. But okay, that totally makes sense. But he's having some doubts, not necessarily doubts, but just, that whole thing that we all do on certain milestone birthdays. 30 was a big one for me. 40, not so much, but 50's coming up for me around the corner. So we'll see, how I feel about that. But, for him, he's like, I'm really, trying to deal with it, but I don't really have any guy friends to talk about it with. Da, 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 da. Well, the episode opens with Sean Astin's character, who has returned. And what's his name? Tyler. So the first scene is him kind of there for breakfast, and he doesn't know what the family likes, so he made 3 different kinds of orange juice and 3 different kinds of eggs or whatever. And so Darlene is a vegan though, right? So she wouldn't even eat eggs, I guess. But in any event, she tells Becky, hey, I don't care that he's staying here. It's cool, like whatever. But it gives her the opportunity to offer to Ben, like, hey, Tyler is a guy and he's about your age, because they talk about, oh, well, you should, talk about these issues with your guy friends. And Ben's like, the only guy friend I have is Dan, your father, so that's not going to work. But him and Tyler are a little bit awkward together when they kind of figure out that they could be friends, and how do we even do that? So they invite Neville and Dan along as well. So they go to the Lobo, and it's just really crowded and not maybe the best night to be there. So Neville's like, guys, I have a secret place that I go. We just can't tell anybody, this and that. So in the spirit of that, all of the guys turn off their location tracking on their phones, which is that like a big thing? I know that's big with like parents and kids, the location tracking, but look, I'm not married. I don't know. But is that a big thing with like married couples, that you have a location tracker on your phone? That seems a little much, but all right. But in the meantime, the girls are having a girls' night. So, Becky, Darlene, and Jackie, while their men are away. And Louise is not there. She's not in this episode, unfortunately, but that might have been fun too. So they're playing like Never Have I Ever and just hanging out and doing some fun stuff. And then they realize that these guys have turned off the tracking because the picture that they sent was so like close up. And I think it was Jackie that was like, well, maybe it's so close up because they don't want you to see where they really are, what the background is. So they're thinking strip club. Where else could it be if they turned off their location but strip club? But no, it is Neville's animal hospital, and he goes and hangs out with the ill animals and all of that. And it was actually a really fun scene. This episode did not bring the laughs like a lot of episodes. I must say it's definitely a little less funny than the last few and most of the ones we've got lately. But the scene in the animal hospital was so cute. I'm a cat person. I had 2 cats. They both passed last year within a few weeks of each other, which was very, very horrible. But there's, a cat that Sean Astin's playing with like one of those little wand things, and that was cute. And so, you heard like some animal noises. So they were really, they were real animals in this scene, which was cool. But it was really nice to see the guys bonding and stuff. I mean, I guess we see it with Neville and Dan. Well, actually, we don't see it with Neville and Dan. We learned that in the last episode, that Neville and Dan, butted heads for a while, and it sort of came to a head last week when he realized, why Dan was spending the money loaned to him differently than what Neville had hoped. We won't go into that again, but so I guess we don't see that a lot. We see Neville, or we see Dan and Ben a lot together, but it was nice to see, kind of everybody just having a good time and being real with each other and all of that. And I mentioned this earlier in the season when we saw Sean Astin. I am such a Sean Astin fan. I mean, who isn't? When I think of my favorite actors, he's not on the list, but like, who doesn't like Sean Astin, right? So he's perfect for this. We've all grown up with him between, the Goonies and Rudy and all of these things. So it's just been great to see him as a small part of this show. Hopefully him and Becky continue to date. And it's nice because Becky has now been sober for a few years. And, there were some kind of touch and go moments, I thought, with her dating, a couple different people where it was like, well, in AA, you're not supposed to necessarily date, super early in the program. And I kind of felt like she was, which is, maybe why it didn't work out. But, she's been sober for years now. So I think the timing is great for a more serious romance. So that would be great if Sean Astin stuck around. But in any event, it was nice to see that. And they get home, and the women are, of course, like, oh, what the hell's wrong with you guys going to strip clubs and whatever. And they eventually get it out. Tyler's the one who breaks, and they knew he would too. Dan kind of made that comment that he's the weak one. His relationship is too new, so he's not going to want to lie or whatever. So, kind of crappy on his part, honestly, because look, that was Neville's like little sort of sanctuary. I think Neville is already still kind of wondering, did I marry into the right family? Because he of all the stuff, with Dan last week and all the things so far that we've seen between Neville and that family. But look, I mean, his sister Louise is married to Dan, so he's going to be part of the family one way or the other, I guess. But still, I mean, that was his like sanctuary. I don't think that was cool that Tyler did that, but whatever. I think Dan kind of called that one in advance. And that was kind of it. That was really the episode. And then it did have a fun tag scene where the women end up going to the animal sanctuary. Now, I don't know how they got in, maybe Jackie took his keys or whatever, but, and they were like, oh yeah, I get this is nice, whatever, and then they all agree to go to the male strip club. So, kind of a nice full circle moment, and that does happen often, right? Women are more sort of, I don't know, allowed to go to the male strip club, I guess, I don't know. I mean, the only strip clubs I've been to really have been on, for bachelor parties. We will go to the strip club. Not on every bachelor party I've been to, but at least, I don't know, 4 or 5. We've gone to strip clubs, and I get it. It's fun, whatever. I'm not super attracted to the women, but they're pretty, whatever. So I don't know. I thought that was a cute tag scene. That was one of the funnier moments, actually, of the episode. Where they decide to go to the strip club after, really being pissed that the guys were at the strip club or thinking they were. So look, overall, this is honestly a more middling episode. I think, look, the last few episodes were so great, between the Grandma Bev episodes and last week we had the Crystal episode. And not saying necessarily that, the only great episodes come with a classic character from the old Roseanne days. Not saying that, but this one didn't quite bring the funny for me as much as some others. Some of the topics were okay, but the whole thing with Harris and Mark just seemed kind of like an afterthought. Like maybe they didn't have enough for that A story, so let's just throw a couple of scenes in there about that. It is nice that sort of both storylines, converged with Darlene sort of, listening to whatever people are anxious about or whatever. So I do kind of like that it dovetailed a little bit in that regard. But overall, this was a bit of more than a bit, I would say, of a step down from the last few weeks. And I guess for the MVP, let's see. Not Tyler, because he gave up their secret right away. I'm gonna give it, because there wasn't a whole lot of like, overly funny moments. I can't really think of anybody that specifically stood out for like the most laughs. Darlene had a couple for sure, but I'm gonna give it to Ben. I'm gonna say J.R. Ferguson, the MVP of the week. I don't think I've given it to him before. I mean, I've only started doing the whole MVP of the week thing, I think last season or maybe season 4, but yeah, I'm gonna give it to Ben. I think the whole turning 50 thing, that's something that we can all relate to. Maybe not with 50, but with a milestone birthday where we're kind of taking stock in what we've accomplished and stuff. Very relatable, and I really like sort of that awkward scene. I would say probably the funniest scene of the episode was that awkward scene with him and Tyler trying to figure out how they become friends. So I will give it to him for this week. I leave the episode, and some of you like to guess my grade before I give it, just from me talking about the episode. You've come to know my my stylings so well, which I love. But I really do. It means, you guys watch the channel, and I really do appreciate that. So Hanging in Dorms with Boys and The Secret Life of Men. I teetered on this one. It's definitely on the lower end, but I will leave it with a B minus. I thought about a B, but it just wasn't funny enough for me. So I'm going to leave it with that B minus. And like I said, I don't think there's a new episode next week. But whenever the next one comes up, rest assured I will be here with you to review it. But in the meantime, check out some of my other videos. Like I said, a lot of movie reviews and TV reviews and all that. And in the next couple weeks, I'm finally going to be done watching all of my new 2023 shows. So I'm going to have a best and worst of TV 2023 video. That should be interesting too. So, all right, a lot to check out. So thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.